Welcome back to the Children's Bible in 365 Stories. Our last story, number 42, finally, the brothers discovered at the end of the story that this administrator over Egypt was really their long lost brother Joseph, who they thought was dead. And now, for the first time, they know it's him. And we're going to learn more about what happened. The title of this story is Family Reunion, and it's taking pieces from Genesis chapter 45 and 46 if you're wanting to follow along in a Bible. The brothers were terrified when the truth at last sank in. Because remember, all but one had plotted. Benjamin wasn't a part of it, and one other brother was not a part of it. All the rest decided to throw him in the hole, and when the caravan came along, sold him into slavery, thinking he was gone, and then spilled animal's blood on his many-colored cloak that his father had given him and put it in front of his father, torn and bloodied, to make him think that Joseph was dead. So as far as they knew, Joseph was long gone and probably died as a slave somewhere, worked to death, and had no clue that their brother could still be alive, let alone in Egypt, let alone in a position of high power in Egypt. So this was just not something they were thinking about. So to suddenly find it was Joseph, realizing that he was in a position to have them all tortured, imprisoned, put to death, any of those things, terrifying. So here he is, in this situation with his brothers, and he's realized in testing them that their hearts have changed and they've become good people, and he's revealed himself because all the animosity between him and them is gone because he's been faithful to God and has understand God's deliverance. So that's part of why they're terrified, because they don't know anything that has happened. The great governor of Egypt has none other than the brother was none other than the brother they had treated so badly many years before. Now he would make them pay for it. At least that's how they're thinking. But instead, Joseph told them to come close to him. Then he hugged and kissed them all in turn, beginning with Benjamin. Don't blame yourselves for what you did, he said kindly. God had a plan when he brought me here. I have been able to save many lives. So now it gets interesting, because what he's saying is that I've trusted God, and God saw the bigger picture in ways that I didn't think of, and my life was not about me and you and Dad and the crops. God was using me in a position to help a whole ton of people, not just you guys. And I couldn't have seen it, and you couldn't have seen it, but God's that amazing. How fascinating. Now you must hurry back to fetch our father and all your families. There are still 5 more years of famine to come. So this was after the second year. I will see you settled in Goshen, where the pasture is good for your flocks. Then at last there was laughter and talking and great excitement. The inquisitive servants were listening and gossiped to everyone. The good news reached the ears of the king himself. Soon the brothers set off for home. Joseph is still alive, they called out to Jacob, and he is governor of all of Egypt. Old Jacob would not believe them until he saw the wonderful presents that Joseph had sent for him. Then the whole family packed up their tents and all their belongings. They gathered their flocks and herds together and began the slow journey to Egypt to settle in the land that Joseph was preparing for them. What an amazing thing. A father who thought his favorite son was dead for years suddenly discovers not only is he alive, but he is actually one of the highest officials in the powerful nation of Egypt, a nearby nation, and has blessed them with many gifts, wants them to move there and put them in new land that is good land and take care of them, knowing that there's 5 more years of famine. His father must have been just astounded and not understanding the amazingness of all of this. And what's more amazing to me is how Joseph saw all of this as the hand of God, and that this was all God's doing. And it wasn't even about him and his family and his father, but it was about God putting him in a position to make life better for a lot of people. All of Egypt would have been in trouble if it hadn't been for how God used Joseph, let alone the neighbors from other countries who have been able to come and buy grain from Egypt because of how well they had planned ahead because of God's visions to the king of Egypt and God's using Joseph with the king of Egypt. Amazing to think about. Well, there's a little bit more to the story, and we'll get to that next time. Thanks for joining me, and be safe and have a pleasant day.